I wanted to turn now, Ryan Grimm, to Capitol Hill, to the showdown over the potential shutdown of the federal government as House Speaker Kevin McCarthy battles far-right lawmakers. Not that he wasn't considered far-right before, but from within his own party. This is McCarthy speaking to reporters Monday.
The one thing I'll tell everybody, I've never seen anybody win a shutdown. You only put the power in the hands of the administration. If you want to secure the border, pass Homeland. If you want to make America strong and secure, you pass the DOD appropriations bill. If you're not willing to pass appropriation bills, and you're not willing to pass a continuing resolution to allow you to pass the rest of appropriation bills, and you don't want an omnibus, I don't quite know what you want.
So that's House Speaker McCarthy sounding not as heated as we heard over the weekend, the F-bombs flying between people like Florida Congressmember Gates, who went to the floor and threatened to remove the House Speaker. Explain everything that's taking place. And do you see this showdown happening? It could happen, what, within 11 days?
That's right. I do see it happening at this point. And it's hard to really describe kind of how idiotic this whole situation is. And McCarthy did a fairly good job right there. What he was saying at the end, I don't know what they want, because there are only a couple different ways to keep the government open. You know, you can either pass a clean CR, which means the way that the government is funded today is the way that the government will be funded into the future until a certain date. You can pass an amended CR, which would say we're going to continue funding the government, but we want these particular changes. And the House Freedom Caucus has put forward a CR like that includes a bunch of draconian kind of immigration and wokeness rules that won't go anywhere in the Senate and won't go anywhere in the White House. But even that has opposition from within the Freedom Caucus. So they can't pass that either. Then you can pass individual appropriations bills, kind of the way that Congress was designed to operate 200+ years ago when it was built. Every committee passes its funding bill. You pass those bills. Senate passes its bills. The president signs them. Done. The government is funded. They can't even agree to do a defense bill. That's supposed to come to the floor today. It might not even pass. They can't agree, as McCarthy said, to do a Homeland Security funding bill. There are 10 other agencies and departments that would need to be funded as well. They can't do that in the next 11 days. They probably couldn't do that over the next year if you gave them that much time. So those are the three options. And the Freedom Caucus is standing in the way of all three of those options. And so notice that I haven't even mentioned Democrats at this point. So this is fully, completely in the hands of the caucus, which is unable to even get its own members to agree on something, which is then going to walk them off the cliff of a government shutdown in a way that doesn't even give them a fig leaf to cover the fact that they didn't do anything. At least with the debt ceiling crisis, if you remember, they passed some completely untenable legislation through the House. So at least they said, look, we did our part. We lifted the debt ceiling, but it came with all these things that obviously Biden's never going to sign. But at least they put it through the House of Representatives. It looks like this time they might not even be able to do that. And if McCarthy then relies on Democrats to try to keep the government open, they're saying, well, then we're going to throw McCarthy out of the speakership. Then they have the problem of who are they going to replace him with? They have no idea because they don't have a majority. They don't have 218 votes for a new speaker. So they don't like the way things are going. They have no idea what to do instead. And so we're just going to get it looks like we're just going to get a shutdown until there's enough pressure on them that they just capitulate again. And ironic.
Ryan, what is these continuing battles of the last several years over government shutdowns? What does this say about the increasing contradictions in the ruling circles in the U.S. society, that they can't agree among themselves as to spending bills?
I feel like, and I'm still kind of thinking through this myself, I'm curious for your guys' take. Back when Washington was really the subject of interest group competition, labor, environmentalists, major corporations, grassroots organizations like, say, the NRA, you fought over legislation and you fought over outcomes because people were jockeying for actual power. But I think what's developed now is that you have a lot of the kind of quote unquote interest groups who are interested in Washington are like, for instance, YouTubers like Steve Bannon, who has a gigantic podcast called The War Room, which has millions of people who are kind of worked up about what's going on in the House of Representatives. And what they want to see is a fight. They want to see a show. And Matt Gaetz has said as much, that they don't necessarily expect Matt Gaetz to win every fight, but they expect him to fight. And so they want the theater of it. You know, they want to see that they sent somebody to Washington who is fighting for them. What they're fighting for, whether they win, whether their situation actually gets worse as a result, is secondary to the kind of emotional release that people want from seeing a clash unfold in Washington. You've seen some of this on the left as well. That they just want to see a fight. They just want to know that they're kind of represented in Washington, even if it's hopeless. You know, even if they won't even like put forward an idea of how they're going to win this showdown. So I feel like that's sort of what's reflected in what we're seeing here, because otherwise you can't make any sense of it from a strategic or tactical sense if you are thinking about outcomes or substance or results that you want from this.
Ryan, we only have a minute. We last had you on discussing prosecutors indicting President Biden's son Hunter on felony charges of illegally possessing a handgun and making false statements in order to get the gun in 2018. Well, on Monday, Hunter Biden filed a federal lawsuit against the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, for allegedly violating his privacy, saying two of its investigators divulged confidential tax information when they testified before Congress. And last week, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy opened an impeachment inquiry into President Biden. Can you talk about these developments?
It's an interesting case that Hunter has filed. Now, the whistleblowers, you know, when they initially came forward to Congress, they said that, you know, as good IRS agents, you know, what we're revealing does not violate any particular, you know, privacy rights of any particular taxpayers, because, you know, the IRS does, you know, not only have a legal mandate around that, but they have a cultural one too, that the people within the IRS are very cautious about revealing private information. But certainly this tax fight has spilled out into the press. So it would certainly be ironic if the IRS ended up having to pay Hunter Biden for, you know, and it depends on, you know, what jury he gets. Maybe this is also some leverage that his lawyers are trying to get against the attorneys, because there's still the unfolding Farah case, which is the, you know, was Hunter Biden illegally acting as a foreign agent without disclosing or without registering? That fight is the reason that the entire plea deal broke down in the first place.
Well, very interesting to see his very powerful lawyer, Abby Lowell, who also represented Steve Bannon.
And the Kushners.
The Kushners. Ryan Grimm, I want to thank you so much for being with us, D.C. Bureau Chief for The Intercept. We'll link to your piece that you wrote with Murtaza Hussain, headlined, U.S. help Pakistan get IMF bailout with secret arms deal for Ukraine, leaked documents reveal. Ryan's Substack newsletter is Bad News.